Well, good afternoon and welcome to Interfaith Paths to Peace. This is our Friday afternoon Enneagram community. So I want to welcome you, those of you that are joining us on Zoom. It's always nice to see your friendly faces. And for those of you that are joining us on Facebook, we don't get to see your face, but we're glad you decided to join as well. And we want to welcome you and encourage you, if you're joining us on Facebook, to feel free to write questions or comments in the chat box, and we'll make sure we bring those into the conversation. It's good to have all of our Enneagram community joining for today. Our topic is the Enneagram and Parenting, and this is always Enneagram and family or Enneagram and parenting are always kind of popular topics. And I think this is one of the great ways to use the Enneagram, I think, in looking at how we are in relationship with each other. And especially for those of you that have children, I also think it's really helpful in understanding our parenting partner, those who we choose to parent with, because it gives us insights into the real gifts and strengths that they bring, and based upon their personality. So what we'll do today is go through each of the numbers and talk about some of the gifts and challenges of your number when it comes to parenting, some things that you might want to be aware of, but also, some highlights of what your ways in which you're really a naturally good parent, but also then, what may be some things you need to be aware of. As the conversation goes, I will encourage, if there are, one of the things that we're going to look at, and I do want to start with this poem or this reflection from Khalil Gibran, because I think this sets the stage well for the way I really understand parenting. I think there are these basic ideas around parenting. I was just saying earlier that I used to teach a lot of parenting classes. I was a youth minister and did a lot of study in human relationships, family systems, and I taught parenting classes until I had kids. And then when I had children, I was like, oh my gosh, I have nothing to say. Experientially, I was like, this is a crazy wilderness. So, there's so much about theory that I think is helpful, and yet a lot of that doesn't make sense when it comes down to the real practical realities of you parenting your specific children. And it feels like the only way to develop those skills is just to do it. So a lot of times I don't really feel like I ever have advice for parents. I just try to invite them essentially to hold their children in great love and adoration, and just struggle through parenting. So what I'm going to share is once we start talking, I will invite those of you that are on Zoom, or if you're on Facebook, to tell us if you think you know what your child's number might be. Let's focus on a little bit of that. So tell us what your number is, and then what the your children may be on the Enneagram. And then let's talk about some of those dynamics, because the purpose and the title of this is Enneagram and Parenting, honoring everyone's path. And so I think that's the real challenge and opportunity in parenting, is to honor your unique way in that you parent, and also to be able to honor the unique personality of your children. And both of those can be done. They can be challenging, but I think both of those can happen. So if we want to get into some specific examples, that may be fun to kind of workshop specific parenting numbers with specific children's numbers, if you think you may know those. So we'll have a time to do that after we go through the numbers. I do want to read this poem by Khalil Gibran. For me, this is just a beautiful way to understand parenting. So let's start with the reading of this. Speak to us of children. And he said, Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. So I don't know if there's any better parenting advice than that right there. And I think that's really important, specifically as we try to honor the unique ways our children are showing up in the world, and be a guide for that, or be a grounding from which their own paths can become clear to them, and that they know, no matter what their path is or may be, that they are always and eternally loved. There's this image in the Bible when Jesus is baptized, and of course he's an adult then, but when he comes up out of the water and he hears this voice, "You are my child, in whom I love, and in you I take delight." That's kind of a Greek that's a transformation of the Greek word. In you I take delight. And I think all children essentially just need to know that we take delight in them, that they are the beloved, that they are an expression of the universe. And our job as parents is to delight in them. And we all do that in our own unique ways, but let's keep that and hold that as we start looking at parenting styles. And I also want to be very gracious here. I mean, if you're like me, I've had 3 children now, 22, 21, and 17, 2 older boys and a girl. And, there's just grace around parenting. It's so difficult. And we are going to get into some of the challenges because of your Enneagram personality number. But let's hold those with great compassion. And let's also hold our parenting partners in great compassion as well. Because they may not do it the way we think it needs to be done. And that's what the Enneagram is all about, is realizing, no, that's true. And the way they do it is unique and beautiful to them. So are there any thoughts or questions before we jump in? Anybody from Zoom have any thoughts or questions as we go? Always feel free to join in the parenting conversation. We already have one, and Sarah will get to that, a 9 parent to an 8 and a 3. So that'll, Sarah, that'll be our first one that we look at after we go through the numbers. So what I am going to do is I've got slides here, of course, to look at. We'll go through each of the numbers, and I'm going to start with the 2, and we're going to look at the heart triad first, because and then we'll go around the wheel and end with the 1, which is kind of interesting. We'll end with the 1, which is the most archetypical parenting number that we have. So we're going to end with ones that are kind of the archetypical parent. And we'll start with the 2 who are very close. They're the archetypical mother. And so let's talk about them and get going. And if you guys have questions, just jump in, unmute yourself, or ask for more explanation. So the 2s, again, we're in the heart image triad, and the 2s are caring, generous, friendly, and warm. And here's some description of this. These parents are warm, affectionate, caring, extra treats in the lunch boxes, love texting sent throughout the day, or constant calls. They really like to stay in touch, even if their child is 30, which we'll talk about as the challenge. They like the baking goods for school, bringing and buying them. Nothing's more trouble for the 2 parent who really just wants to help. And so again, this is kind of the traditional mother archetype, and a lot of energy around helping children. And what you give your children is a feeling of being loved and nurtured. I mean, that's what you do really well. Your empathy allows them to feel heard. You're a good listener. As a result, they often feel very valued and cared for. You can easily be persuaded to play along with child's activities and can make a really nice kind of play friend, enjoys them. Now, some of the challenges are sometimes this love, particularly for certain types of children, can feel smothering. And your need to remain in constant contact can be protective, can feel overbearing for some children. So it may be of value to you to let the reins go age appropriately, so your child can establish independence while still being there to pick up the pieces should things go if things go wrong. So so here we have the 2 parent, and I think the challenges with the 2 is that they naturally over-identify with this caring, loving, archetypical energy. And I find that a lot of 2 parents find it hard to let their children go, because in those ages of the teenage, when you so already identify with the mother or the nurturing archetype, and then you need to transition to other identities, and your children need you to transition to your own life, that codependent relationship is really difficult for 2s. And so I think the teenage years and the later teenage years can really be challenging for 2s. I think especially 2 mothers who really identify their identity with nurturing and caring for their children. So here we have to really watch codependent relationships, making sure that you throughout your parenting give children their own, let them fail. That's hard for 2 mothers or 2 parents, to let children fail, because you want to be there to help, and that you identify with that. So I don't know if any of you all are 2 parents, or anybody watching on Zoom, but if you have any thoughts about the challenge, you're welcome to type that in. But 2s are amazing parents, and they have a lot of work to do when their children no longer need them to be parented. Sometimes you can, in family systems, we've talked about codependency, that sometimes 2 would rather their children be dependent upon them than for them have to deal with the loss of their identity as the primary caregiver, right? So that can be a real challenge. And I think 2s have to mourn a loss of identity, which is really difficult, as their children don't need them to parent them in the same way anymore. So this is a challenging one and a beautiful one when it comes to parents. So we can come back to that if anybody wants to. So we'll move on to the 3. The 3 is the performer and achiever. These parents are very optimistic, goal-oriented, so naturally they put much emphasis on success when it comes to raising children. They'll be shouting at the side of the racetrack as their 5-year-old storms across the finish line, sending their 7-year-old to extra tennis and violin and a whole host of other activities, all in the name of wanting their children to succeed in life. I don't know if y'all read the book Tiger Mother, or I think it was called The Battle Republic of the Tiger Mother. I think it's what it is. But this is a real interesting book that talks a lot about, it's actually came from an Asian woman, and about the incredible amount of cultural pressure to succeed and be successful that Asian parents put on children. And how hard that is on children. And so if you want an example of a unhealthy 3 parenting, you can look at this Tiger Mother. I think it feels unhealthy to me. Type 3s are hard workers, so chances are time with the kids will be dispersed between meetings. So they really are concerned about their professions, and so children kind of have to fit into this this clockwork. I think when I look at some parenting that looks really challenging for me in the West, a lot of it has to do with this success, achievement, American cultural, having your children have to do things right. They have to go to the right schools. They have to. So one of the challenges with the 3 is that their own identity as being a good parent, or their own need to be seen as successful, puts a lot of pressure on 3 children. And some 3 children do well with that. Sometimes they don't do well with that. That they experience the expectations to be perfect or to succeed as a lot of pressure. And so, as you can see, what you give your child is a belief that hard work and anything is possible. They will also experience a wide range of talent, enhancing activities, and just as much as you throw yourself into any new task, so too will give your parenting your all. They are very committed in that. They will experience you as both consistent and dependable. You'll also demonstrate good organizational skills and deep-rooted responsibility. The challenges are that some children may enjoy the pressure and achievement. Others may find this energy and scheduling exhausting and feel they have failed in some way for not living up to your expectations. Sometimes it could be great for both of you to let go doing so much and just relax into being. And so those are the real gifts and the challenges of 3 parenting. And I think this is even more difficult in Western American culture, because they're already getting images from our culture about success, what it means, to succeed in our culture. And kids with these just kinds of crazy schedules that we see in the West, if you add a parent that's a 3 to that mix, that's a lot of stress, can be a lot of stress. All right, moving on to the 4 types that are called creative, deep, emotional, expressive. This parent will inspire creativity in their children. Music, art, cooking, whatever form of self-expression inspires them. At times, melancholic or sentimental, this parent can also be upbeat and fun. They feel and care deeply and are affectionate and insightful, helping their children to get in touch with their feelings. They probably don't enjoy socializing in big groups, so mom and tots mornings may not work out for them. They prefer doing something one-on-one activity with their child. What they give their children, a love of all things artistic and a desire to explore creativity. They can be supportive and encourage their child's uniqueness. They're not afraid of alternative thinking and ways of being in their in the lives of their children are often role models when it comes to being true to oneself. How do you enhance your type? Sometimes their moodiness or even depression may worry a child who may feel somehow responsible. So a reassuring word could be of huge value when you're feeling down, and use your natural intuitive ability to tune into where a child is at. So yeah, you really see the beauty of these parents. They are very creative parents and can invite their children to be unique, can really affirm the creative impulses of their children. The challenges do come with the melancholy or the depression, um, and children can also take that on, or not necessarily know how to relate to a parent who may have bouts of depression. So I think really honesty around that, and children trusting, that my parent's going to be okay, and that they not feel like they need to come along and be the helper or the parent, the friend of the parent to help the parent through those. That's not a child's role. And so I think if parents that are fours need to make sure that they have some other outlets. Not that you can't have integrity with your children and talk to them about, different moods and things like that, but reassuring the child that you're going to be okay, I think is really important for children, to not move into a parenting or a caretaking role for the four, if they do feel melancholic or depressed. I don't know, Julie, you're the four on our call. What do you how do you experience your parenting, or what have been some things about this that you either resonate with or don't resonate with? If you're pretty open to sharing.
Yeah, sure. I do. I think.
I think you went on mute. Oh no.
Am I off? Can you hear me
No,
now?
you're good. I hear you.
I think that I really resonate with that. Okay, so I laughed about the moms and tots group because that was always a struggle when my kids were little. Made myself go to it, but it was a struggle.
You didn't like it, yeah. Okay, well that's good.
I did laugh about that, but I was just thinking. I think one of the things so my kids are teenagers; they're 15 and 13. I think one of the things I do well is we talk a lot about our feelings. I'm sure that's not terribly surprising, since I'm a four. I think I've really consistently worked on helping give them names and feeling to their feelings and their emotions, and it's acceptable to have emotions in our house. I think one of the things which I think is a real positive, that I feel like I've given them that ability to recognize their emotions, think about where they are with those. So I think that's a positive. I think definitely not so much that although I do struggle sometimes with depression, but not to the point of being non-functional with it, but I do very much resonate with that idea that my kids take on, because I probably am very expressive with my feelings, they feel responsible for them. And so that's something I work a lot on is, we're not, we are responsible for each other, but we don't have to own the other person's emotion, and it's not about them. So like if mom's irritated from work, that's not about you, that's about work. And crying. So I work really hard, and I hope that I'm effective in doing that and setting those boundaries of saying like, this is my, this is what I'm upset about right now. Like visibly, obviously I have no poker face, everybody knows where my emotions are all the time. But like trying to make those boundaries that say like, here's what I'm upset about. And it's not you. I'm upset because I'm irritated about something that just happened at work, or I'm upset about a family thing. So I think those are really important to have those boundaries. And I think what you were also saying, Jed, about making sure that I have appropriate support structures in my life is important to me, so that I have friends and I have my close family members and I have therapists and I have people that I need to make sure I'm getting that from other people and not expecting it from my children.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Do you have a sense of what your Enneagram types your children are?
I think my son is a 6 and my daughter is a 7, is my suspicion.
Uh-huh.
And so I think particularly with my son as a 6, he really feels my emotions and he
Yeah.
feels very responsible for them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because they're the loyalists, so they move into relationship and being loyal. They're the other type that can move towards codependency because
mhm,
sixes do that out of a sense of loyalty and security for them. So
mhm,
parents can hold a lot of that sense of, do they feel secure? So they want their parents to feel secure as well.
right.
Yeah.
And I definitely see that in him a lot.
Do you correspond with really feeling like you want your kids to be unique, you kind of uniquely themselves? Do you feel like you encourage their
Oh yeah.
creativity? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's important for you.
Um, and that is far more of a dynamic, I think, between my daughter and I, of because she's much more both personality wise and age wise of this, like exploring who she is and who her identity on many, many levels is.
Yeah,
Um, and I think one thing that's been very positive for me is that while she is on that journey of who I am in all ways of being a person, if you know what I mean, um, I feel very comfortable with that because I'm fine with being unique and different and having alternative perspectives on the world and alternative, life choices. And so I think that's been a real positive thing,
yeah,
um, that it's allowed me to be far more comfortable with us exploring those things than I think I would have otherwise. My son is much more of a traditionalist. So
mm.
sometimes I think I'm trying to make him be more individual than he wants to be.
Yeah. I think that can be an interesting, yeah. Trying to, and again, for all of these, the parenting styles is, that we have to be aware of what we might be projecting onto our kids, of what we want based upon what we feel is important to us.
Yes.
And as we go through all of these, that's what we really have to take responsibility for as parents, is what's my tendency of projecting who I want them to be based upon who I am. And sometimes that can be, I don't want you to be like me because I don't like this part about myself. And sometimes it can be, I do like this part about myself, or I see the world this way, and I think therefore you should too. And I think knowing our Enneagram numbers and knowing our tendencies to that is really important. So I appreciate the wanting him to be more of an individual than he might be. That's a really good insight. So
Well, and I think, it's helped me understanding with the Enneagram types, um, like as a 4, that deep desire I always have to be different and unique and a special person,
yeah,
and not understanding in the past, that's not important to him.
yeah,
Um, and so recognizing like, oh, those are kind of like base underlying personality things. It's okay. Like it's okay for
yeah.
me to be me and for me to let him be who he is.
Right. Well, you just named right. The purpose of this call is to allow people to be themselves and also let their children be themselves. So,
Yeah.
beautiful. That's very helpful. Thank you, Julie. I really appreciate you sharing there. Always appreciate your reflections. I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to jump in at any point. You're welcome to do that. And those of you that are joining us on Facebook Live, always feel free to ask questions or put those in the comment box. So we'll move on. To the 5. So the 5, this 4 or 5 thing is a real interesting change because you move from somebody that the 4 to the 5, you're moving out of the heart triad into the head triad, and 4s have such a deep emotional kind of awareness and emotional intelligence, and then you move to the 5s who really don't. So that's one of the big differences there in the Enneagram. And these two are smacked up right against each other. Those who relate primarily to their thoughts, and then the 4 that relates primarily to their emotions. and sometimes if you're a 4 and have a 5 child, or if you're a 5 and have a 4 child, you can miss each other on this form of social capital. And that's one of the things that we can look at, that 5 children or those in the head triad may relate more with social capital around thoughts, and those in the heart triad may relate better around feelings, except not necessarily the 3. But that's always an interesting dynamic to ask, is what's the social capital of your child, and to be able to meet them there, where they feel connected to you. And so as we look at the 5, they're, what we call the investigator or the thinker. Type 5s are much more cerebral type of personality than feeling 4. Knowledge is power would be the motto that they would seek to instill in their children. Also busy on a project or researching one, they like to feel capable, yet are less inclined to socialize, seeing it for the most part as being a waste of time. But if a child asks how atoms are formed, for instance, the 5 will be patient and happy to answer, probably in quite a lot of detail. They are kind, but that still doesn't make them able to cope with a child's neediness or emotional outbursts. If a child is very emotional, they could experience this parent as being withdrawn. And again, 5s tend to be stingy with their time. And so 5s can parent really well when they know they can do it in these blocks of time. But if it just becomes this ongoing kind of neediness, 5s really struggle with that. They struggle to stay present to that for long periods of time. And so I think let's stay on what they give. What they give is a broad field of knowledge, from bird watching to gaming to celestial study, or even an insight into the esoteric. This parent loves passing on information. The naked scientist is a good example. Babies are a time-consuming time that 5s value dearly for research, etc. Like they like to see their families or children as these interesting research projects. As a result, they may find themselves communicating better with older children who may share a common interest. So you can see these are the parents that once a child comes into liking something, they can spend a ton of time sharing information. Really does become their social capital. Some of the challenges: recognize that being authoritative to a 2-year-old doesn't work. So rather engage with a perspective of kindness, and that is who you really are. And admire your child's ability to retain data and intellectual prowess, but make sure it's age appropriate. Yeah, I think those are the beauties and the challenges of 5s. A lot of time when I'm in I'm a 7, but I moved to a 5, and I'm noticed in my life I'm moving a lot more to 5. And so a lot of social capital I have with my kids are talking about these really deep things. Like I can get into, and at times I'm afraid I may have freaked my kids out, like as young children, because I started talking to them early on about, relativism, and I probably introduced some philosophical concepts that, I was a Christian pastor when my children were growing up, and we had this beautiful community, Covenant Community Church, that was so nurturing of children and their unique paths. But at times I felt like I introduced things too early to their young psyches, and they've all become atheists. Like they just, none of them go to church anymore, and they don't know what to think about my kind of woo-woo spirituality stuff. But I taught them really early on to think, and I think they're all in the head triad. But anyway, so those can be some of the beauties and challenges of 5 parents. Be very age appropriate when you introduce them to these concepts. Otherwise, you may fry their psyches. They may all become fours, like that nihilism. Actually, there's a lot of.
It's not like that's a
What's
bad
that?
thing if they all
Julie?
become fours. You said
Yeah.
that like a bad thing.
No, I just meant the richness of fours. My daughter may be a four, actually, and I just love that about her. She says she tests as a four. I'm not quite sure that's where she is, but I mean, my best friends are fours, Julie. I love being with fours. I mean, you guys are awesome. Y'all are such a fun experience. You never know what you're going to get with a four, and sevens love that. That's like a drug.
We're fun like that.
Yeah, you are. It's awesome. I'm not sure I could be married to one of you, but I think you're great friends.
That's a good thing to be.
Yeah. So, to the sixes. The sixes are the loyalist. We're staying in the head triad here. As their name suggests, sixes are loyal, dutiful, and make compassionate, nurturing parents, able to view things from a child's as well as their own point of view. They may find it hard to establish firm boundaries with their children. In worrying about possible potential for their children getting hurt, they can make it hard for a child to gain independence. Careful not to go too deep, climb too high, go too far, etc., is the repeated warning of worrying six parents, even to the point of paranoia, and holding on to because sixes have a lot of anxiety, and sometimes that can come across in their parenting. And at times can be real rebels in the nicest kinds of ways. What they give their children they are dependable, hardworking, responsible parents. They can be warm and engaging and very funny, and are often natural homemakers. In spite of their fears, they can demonstrate huge inspirational courage. And that's where healthy sixes can show a lot of that courage. Enhancing your type. While the limits of the sixes sets may seem reasonable to them, outgoing, adventurous children might experience their parent constant fears as being limiting, giving a child the view that the world or people in it are not to be trusted. Try building a sense of trust within yourself and let go of the need to constantly fear the worst that could happen. I think this is really important right now, and sixes really have to be aware in times of like cultural fear or the fear of the other. A lot of times sixes can project that fear and children pick up on it. So a lot of nationalism, a lot of fear of the other, if sixes aren't really aware of that, they can create environments where their children take on those kinds of stereotypes, those types of anxieties. And so I think sixes really have to be aware of that, not to project their skepticism and their fear in a way that children become fearful of the other or distrust other people, or maybe even feel like the world is a threatening place rather than a safe space. And I think sixes really have to work with that because internally they work with that a lot. But again, I mean, they're very loyal parents and they're very committed to parenting. Because the idea of the traditional family or the family as the safe unit has been something that they try to put a lot of energy into. And they like to parent people. They can be fun parents as well. So I don't know if there's any thoughts or connections. Fran, I don't know if you have any thoughts about anything here. You're welcome to unmute yourself if you do or not.
Gosh. Well, both my kids had their respective special needs. Okay. My older son, very ADHD, and is also like, if you look up 9, his photo is probably right there.
Mm-hmm.
My other son has cystic fibrosis. So my goal for him was always to have the most normal life he could possibly have. And he once self-identified as a 3, but I don't think so. I think he may be a 6.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the drive, the ambition. He has it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he got married. He has kids. He has a steady job. I mean, he's really lived up to being quote unquote normal, because there are so many things he had to do that were not just to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
And he continues to do those things. I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether this is 6 or something else, but I always tried to look at my kids as, from each according to their ability to each according to their needs. I don't think I was ever super duper cautious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's right. No, that's helpful. How about was them transitioning out of the house difficult?
Well, I transitioned out of the house and left them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah.
And we have a good relationship.
Yeah.
Both, with I think with both of them.
Yeah. Well, good. Thanks for the insights there. Judy, you unmuted. Do you have any thoughts or comments there?
Well, I was just going to comment on, as Fran's friend, that I thought you have really allowed and encouraged independence and exploration with both of your boys. And have not been overly cautious in the way that it sounded like a 6 might be, that letting them be who they are, but explore and travel and do things that were not overprotected.
Oh, well, that's beautiful. Thanks for those good words, Judy. Yeah.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah, we all need affirmation in our parenting, right? I mean, it's such a hard job. So thanks for those beautiful, good words. All right, well, let's move to the 7. The 7, optimist, spontaneous, uninhibited, keen. Oops. Let me get our slide there. So 7s. With a type 7 parent, a child is in for an exciting, albeit exhausting ride. My kids thought this was funny. I was reading this to Bailey earlier. Climbing Kilimanjaro one day and bungee jumping the next. The 7 parent is abuzz with ideas for things to do, and very often generous to a fault. They love planning exciting events and keeping up a restless pace. They are seldom, if ever, down and bring enthusiasm to all they do and love. Your child may experience that the parent is unavailable much of the time, being caught up in some new adventurous business or pursuit. What they give their children, they are the great storytellers, the A.H. Rider Haggards of the world, and will keep kids entranced with their often fantastical tales. The Peter Pans of the world, they seldom seem to age and is seen as often to relate well to children. They will encourage and inspire risk-taking as a way to rewards. Enhancing 7s. What 7 parents don't always understand is that some children enjoy feeling settled in one place and experience the frenetic activity as exhausting. All this activity may make 7 parents less interested in more mundane aspects of life, such as homework supervision, which I don't know anything about, cooking, which I know less about, etc., and cleaning up. Those are things that I don't know much about. So combine activity with some quieter time to get a better balance between being and doing. So as you can tell, I relate a lot with this number. I think I really came on board when my kids like I was always considered the fun parent. So I married, my wife was a 1. So she, we really polarized each other in that she always felt like I was the, the fun parent, and I always felt like she was the overbearing parent. And so we polarized each other, but the space between us was actually a really good space to raise, I think, fairly healthy, well-adjusted children. But yeah, I think they definitely see some of my behavior to be a little exhausting for them at times. I think I've moved around since I was divorced when they were about 7 or 8 years ago. And I think my lack of need for security, I think at times caused them some anxiety. Like, where's dad? And since I've been out of the house, like I'm prone to just get up and, like, on Monday, I woke up on Monday morning and thought, hey, I'd like to go to New Harmony. So I just drove to New Harmony, Indiana, and spent the night. But like those kind of spontaneities, like where's dad in the world? Kind of like, where's Waldo? And I think part of them likes that, and then part of them worries a little bit about that. So I think letting sure they know that I'm always available, can always be there when they need me, but I may be, who knows where I'm going to be in the world. And I think we've really had to work with that. They've come to trust because I always show up when they do need me. I think they've come to trust that, but I think that could be a challenge for them, or has been maybe a challenge in the past for them. But my love language is shared experience, especially fun experiences. So like, we were constantly, I tried to create a zip line in the back of our yard, and it fell down and cracked my head. And so I do all these crazy projects, and sometimes they're just like, yeah, I could see them shaking their head being like, oh my gosh, what is dad up to next? So anyway, I relate a lot to the 7, and can appreciate my need to be grounded more for them, and consistent for them are things that I really have had to work at. So I don't know if there are any other comments, thoughts there. If not, we'll move on to the 8s. So 8s, we are called the bosses or the challengers. The powerful boss parent speaks straight and expects the same thing of their his or her offspring. Survival of the fittest is the motto, and they want to instill that. They're often big-hearted and demonstrative. They want their children to be tough in the face of challenges and relentless pursue their desires. They are often sudden outbursts of anger, which are quickly forgotten by themselves, but not always by others. My way or the highway type of parenting. As a result, some children may experience 8s as dominating and angry. 8 parents may see sensitivity in a child as a weakness rather than a potential strength. What they give their child is a fierce protective presence, making a child feel safe from the world. Like large bears, they seek to destroy all threats to themselves and those they love. They adore their children and will do much to help them succeed in the world. To enhance them, be aware that sometimes you may be inclined to see your children as extensions of yourself rather than being individuals with their own desires. Sometimes the very largeness of your personality may unwittingly scare and intimidate children. Allow your child the space to voice their feelings without the need to challenge or control them. Yep, 8 parents can, in the experience that I've had in working with 8 parents or 8 families with 8s, and there's an interesting parallel that 8 parents often beget 8 children, because sometimes children feel like they need to really step up and meet their parent with a lot of the same energy. And 8s like that. So 8s actually evoke that kind of energy from their children. And because again, 8s know where they are, and if they can trust you, you get inside the ring, the force field of an 8, and that's where they become like they will do anything for you. You know, they'll protect you, but they also will, you know, they'll go to bat for your needs. But I think children of 8 often can get scared of their power that 8s don't know they exhibit. And so sometimes you can see children really retreating from that and having difficult relationships with 8 parents. Or you can see them becoming 8s themselves and matching their parent with that kind of energy and force. Honestly, I see a lot of parents and in family work having real challenges with their 8 parents. And those can be really difficult relationships for children at times. And 8 parents, while having big hearts, don't always lead with that kind of emotion. They can have it, and again, inside the force field of an 8, there's a lot of love. They become the teddy bears. So that's 8s and parenting. I don't know if there are comments, or again, if you have a comment or a question, feel free to jump in.
I was just gonna say, so I think my kid's dad is an 8, is my suspicion, and I was thinking, so some of those things are very, very true. The fiercely protective aspect of it, I think, is a real positive. You know, that willingness to, you know, the people who are in, and there's nothing that won't be done for those people. And I think that's a positive thing. But I was also thinking that's interesting, that whole idea of, you know, my daughter who's a 7, you know, that rising to the emotion has been an interesting thing in their relationship. And so I see those dynamics, and it's really interesting. I really like the way you have this set up, though, of like, here are the positive things, and here are then some ways that sometimes it plays out. And I see a lot of truth in that here.
Yeah. Good. That's helpful to have the real examples. And to be able to honor, again, how do we honor our parenting partners' gifts that they bring to the relationship with their children that we may not, you know, that's really where it is a partnership. And if you can really find and honor the gifts that your parenting partner brings and affirm that, that's really important.
I really like the way you're saying that, because, you know, especially for parents who are no longer in a marriage, I think respecting that partnership is super important. And it's helpful to think through, like, you know, where are the positives? You know, where are the things that, you know, this other parent can offer the children that I can't offer, because we have very different personalities. And I think that's super important to think about, and to look for positives like that.
Yeah. And here's just a parenting, you know, especially as parents, if they do separate, it's so important to not talk negatively of the other parent. Again, what we do when we do that is we dichotomize children in their own psyches, because children know they are half of both. And when we reject a part or say something about the parent, they don't know they're doing this, but they then have to try to not reject that part of them where they know they may be like that parent. And so talking negatively about another parent is just, I mean, you just have to do everything you can. Doesn't mean you can't have differences. one of the things we talk about with parents in those situations, even if you stay together, this is really important, is often to say, you know what, I see this part of your other parent, I see in you, and I love that. You know, where you can find those really positive things is to affirm that in them. Is, you know, I see you, you are really strong like your dad or your mother. And I really love that about you, and I love that about her or him. You know, because what that does is it allows children to bring all of who they are and love it, you know. So yeah, even just parents not speaking negatively of the other parent, and whenever possible, affirming what you can affirm. That's really important in children's own development and the integration of who they are as people. And also, we talked last week about triangulation. If you move into adversarial relationships, a lot of times children get triangled into that. Anyway, that was last week's, but Julie, thanks for your comments about that and being able to affirm the beauty and the good pieces. So we got two more, the 9. The 9 is the peacemaker. These parents are mostly laid back with a laissez-faire attitude to life. They are gentle, often creative and warm people with a dry sense of humor or wry sense of humor. Discipline may be something that they would rather avoid, leaving it to the other parent. If they perceive their parent as not helping, they can become stubborn and withdrawn. They can meander in their conversations and be indecisive. They are generally popular and accepting of those around them. And here's the passive-aggressive piece that 9s can begin to show in those relationships. What they give their children is a genuine feeling of being accepted and loved. And they, because they really do that. They really have a great capacity to see their children, see them in their uniqueness, and can offer that genuine sense of loving and acceptance. Enhancing your type. This desire for peace at all costs may be experienced as avoiding facing any situations or behavior that needs addressing, making the child feel like they lack a firm grounding or support. Children do need direction, so adopting a firm stance, albeit difficult, is sometimes necessary. Sometimes 9s can tune out to the world around them. Being aware of this can bring your focus back onto those you love. So again, 9s not wanting to rock the boat or know where they are sometimes can be hard for children who do need some boundary. They do need a parent at time to step up and set a boundary that may feel conflictual. But at times children need that for a sense of safety and concern. Also, parents have to be really aware when they get into their more unhealthy range about this withdrawing too much, that sometimes parents need them to kind of step in and be engaged. Also, sometimes my experience has been that when parents have concern about the other parent, they can tend to let things go too long before they confront the other parent about behaviors that they don't feel are appropriate or helpful, because they want to kind of keep the peace. Sometimes they withdraw their voice in some ways that may advocate for the child or for the home or for the with the other parent. And so sometimes you really see the 9 needing to step into what may feel conflictual relationship or energy, but for the need of setting some boundaries, which may be important. Suzanne, Judy, I would love for you all to help flesh out the 9 stuff if you have thoughts or what you might respond to or don't respond to.
Well, I really relate to the idea of not wanting to rock the boat and not wanting to set a lot of limits. And I could set a limit and then be talked out of it pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I value freedom and independence, and so I could kind of rationalize, well, that was it. Also, I think my ex-husband was probably an 8 also. So we did have battles, and I probably did let things go and tried to placate and tried to just kind of work around his anger and his domineering kind of thing. And so that I really felt that.
Yeah. And the 8-9 partnership is often a common one, because eights have a lot of control and power, 9s, and then they get into they really dichotomize themselves on that.
Mm-hmm.
And can be one of the challenges that they have to address. But 8s and 9s tend to partner often, has been my experience. Suzanne, do you have any thoughts? Or
I could really relate. I thought this was right on. When I married Jack, though, his children were grown, but now we have lots of grandchildren, and I see where it's really hard to manage them. For example, it's like you can't order soda pop with your dinner, and they'll have a fit, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, and you take that on, yeah.
Instead of milk or something. And so I see that.
Actually, a 9 grandparent, man, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a better, to have a 9 grandparent. That may be the quintessential number of a grandparent.
I take them, I take them out more than any of the other ones. And and so we have a good time. And I noticed that this Enneagram has helped me so much with like the grandchildren and understanding, like with the 4, understanding ourselves, but then, the other parents not understanding their 4 child, it's like, oh, that's why, and why I can connect with them and try to explain what's going on. It's like, like you can't, they're creative, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, my Chinese parents, that book that you're talking about, the battle hymn of the Tiger Mom.
Yeah.
Well, she was an attorney. That's how our parents were. You're going to become an attorney or a doctor, and you couldn't do anything creative. That's a waste of time. So can you imagine having Chinese parents and raising a type 4 child,
Right. Yeah. Well, and 9s as well. I mean, 9s and 4s are both creative types. In fact, sometimes 9s and 4s test similar.
I growing up, I had different things going on in school that I wanted to do, and they just thought, nope, like cheerleader. I did it anyway, but it was like they wouldn't support me with any of that, or homecoming queen, or anything that was too far out from getting good grades was like a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, and there you're overlaying both personality type and cultural parenting styles, which I think is a really good and important overlay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. If you want more grandkids, you're welcome to take my kids out and just let them get whatever they want.
Have a good time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, thank you all. That's very, very helpful. Appreciate your thoughts and comments there. And so we come to the end with the 1. And so the 1 is the perfectionist. Do you find yourself getting annoyed when toys are not put back in the toy box, or a room isn't tidied up, or when your child arrives back from school covered in mud? Find yourself getting angry with other parents who don't seem to have the same disciplinary concerns? Type 1 parents are perfectionists and have a firm belief that there are certain ways things should be done, and they expect their children to adhere to these rules and principles. What you give your child as a type 1 parent, you give your child firm, secure boundaries with a sense of responsibility. You are both consistent and fair. You also instill a sense of what is right and wrong. Tell the truth above all else. My type mom used to tell me, and it's still been, and it stood in, and it's been still good, me in good, it's stood me in good stead. Thank you. I'm having trouble with the, my mom is a 1, and I married a 1. So we looked at that family system thing last week. But yeah, this was my mom. Enhancing your type. Sometimes you could look at relaxing a bit and allowing your child to see your fun side, which is there, right? 1s go to 7s when they're healthy. So that side of them is there. Whilst tidiness may be necessary, spontaneity and fun play can be more important. Also realize, and this can be hard, that there may be more than one right way. What's right for you may not be right for the other person. Try also to talk to your child and not fall into a habit of preaching. And I think those are some of the dynamics. Yeah, those are things that my mother did have a pretty good way to do that, but I always lived under a sense of there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and I'm probably doing it the wrong way. And part of me is doing it that way just to buck the system, so that's my rebel side that kind of came out with a strong 1 mother. There's always a right way to do things, and I rebelled quite a bit against that, thinking there are a lot of different ways to do it, and I'm going to find my own way. So yeah, those are, again, the 1 and the 2 parents are the archetypical parent types. So I think, again, they have to work a lot with when children move out. How do they cultivate new identities? Because that can be very challenging times for 1s and 2 parents to be able to create enough space for their new identities to emerge. All right, so I'm gonna drop out of our shared screen and see if there are, there were some other things that came up. So let's take a look at Sarah Waskey. Sarah is a 9 parent to an 8 and 3 child. So let's go back and look at the 9 parent, and then let's imagine some of the challenges with those children. So Sarah, as we said earlier, some of the, let me get back to the screen. The real pluses of the kind of going with the flow, being a peacemaker in the family. With an 8 child, I think, yeah, if you have an 8 child, I would say the challenge would be for you to remain the parent and not let the energy or the anger of an 8 child overrule you as the parent. Because I can imagine the energy of an 8 child being very demanding and very out there, and you would be likely to swallow your voice or swallow your boundary in running from or staying away from the anger of your 8 child. And I mean, teenagers have a lot of energy anyway, right? So I don't know if this is a boy or a girl 8, but that would be something a 9 parent would really have to stay in their parenting role and in their parenting authority to create appropriate boundaries and something for children to bump up against. So I would say a 3 child, as a non-parent. So if you have a 3-child, I would say, because 3 is your place of integration, Sarah. So one of the questions I would ask, and I don't know why this just came to me, I would ask, is your 3-child owning some of your unactualized energy for expressing yourself in the world? So this would be to be aware of not living out your unlived life through your children. Because a 3-child would, be interested in doing a lot of things, interested in wearing a lot of masks, performing and achieving. And if that's your area of integration, can you encourage, wherever, how your child's manifesting, but don't over-identify with your child's successes or failures, because that could be a tendency of a non-parent to merge with their children. And so therefore they don't have to actualize it because their children are actualizing it. So I don't know if that, I may not, Sarah, be communicating that as clearly. Sarah also wrote, as a single parent, I always feel like we need to have more fun, that I don't provide enough excitement. I always hear myself saying, be quiet, or why can't you both just get along and be kind to each other? I help my kids to see all the sides of a situation, different perspectives, provide a warm, loving household. I take on the mood of my kids, which are complete opposites. I have to work on staying calm and true to myself. Definitely don't like to discipline and tend to give in. Well, thank you, Sarah. That's a beautiful description of non-parenting and some of the challenges there. Sarah, I also want to say all parents find themselves saying, be quiet, and why can't you just get along and be kind to each other? So we all share your that parenting challenge. But thanks for saying that. Oh, and Sarah also says, my kids have 2 non-grandparents. Oh my gosh, 2 non-grandparents. You won the grandparenting lottery on that. Wow, that's super. Your kids are going to feel very loved and taken care of. And Paula says, a 2-parent with a 4 daughter and not so sure about my son, possibly an 8. Well, that would be interesting, right? Because Paula, if you're a 2-parent, then you've got a kid in your line of integration and a line of your disintegration. So, yeah, that, again, those could be places of a lot of projection, negative projection and positive projection. 2s go to 4 in integration, right? They can take on the caring for themselves, the way 4s kind of naturally have this inward look. 2s can take that on in a healthy place. 2s can also, their 8 is their negative place. So, or their I shouldn't say negative, I should say challenging or disintegration. Again, we've talked about how 8 can be a healthy place for 2 at times. So, yeah, and again, as a 2-parent, the challenge of asking yourself, Paula, am I letting my children fail? And am I over helping? And am I over identified with my parenting role? Again, that would be a 2 tendency. So those are some questions I think I would invite you to ask. And then looking at the projection onto either of them, because they're in the line of integration and disintegration. And again, if you all have any thoughts about those comments, always feel free to include them. There's a question, Rochelle, where can I get these descriptions? Again, Rochelle, I would always, Hudson and Rizzo, The Wisdom of the Enneagram is always the book that I think is most helpful, very clear. So if you want fuller descriptions, invest in that book. It's a good one. Again, Hudson and Rizzo, called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. May have a copy of it here. But I would start with that one. I think they provide really good descriptions. And I think those are the ones that I've got on. So let's, those of you that are on Zoom, how about let's do kind of a closeout. What's been interesting, insightful? Let's kind of check out. Maybe those of you that are on Facebook can also check out what's been helpful or insightful. I don't know if there's anything else on Zoom. Questions or thoughts on Zoom?
I was just
yeah, Julie.
I was having kind of a question come up in my mind when you were just talking of something just to think about, which is based on what your Enneagram is, how does that impact your identity shift that happens when you become a parent? Because as you were just saying about over-identifying with your children for, I think it was twos, it caused me to think back to when I first had very young children, and I was really struggling with that mom identity of having lost, you know, I had owned my own business and had, you know, done a lot of things before I had kids. And so I had this huge identity crisis around becoming a mother. And, but then I was just thinking, you know, how much of that was based in being a 4 and having that identity inside of me. So I was just thinking, that's an interesting thought for me to have is, you know, when people become parents at such a transitionary point, how does their Enneagram play into that, was what I was just thinking about.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I guess we can all ask that question. I think it's important to ask that question in these transition points. Like when you first have children, what's my new identity and how am I going to embody that uniquely? But then also when children leave the home, how does my identity need to change or transition? I think the identity question, though, that you're raising is really important. And maybe should go around, and maybe that's something I ought to think about and add to those slides is when you first have, what may be some of the challenges during life, family life cycle based upon your identity, based upon your number. That's a great question. Fran, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I always thought of parenting as something I did, but not something that I was. So it wasn't so much identity.
That's
so
a great.
Asking the question is very indicative of my Enneagram personality.
Right, about the identity.
Because it's all about me and my identity.
Right, that's what it's all about, me and my identities. That's a beautiful distinction, Fran. Thank you. Yeah, other people may not even, like I was trying to think as a 7. It's the two sides of the coin. I was like, holy crap, I gotta grow up. Like mine wasn't, I'm a parent. Mine is like, am I an adult? Like, should the world be trusting me with children? Like, I'm still not sure I'm out of that stage, you know? So my identity was around, holy, you know, I've got to get my stuff together. You know, I'm a dad now. So mine wasn't, I'm a parent. Mine is, am I an adult? So that may be a 7's way of orienting. But I think that's a good distinction, Fran. So maybe it's something now that I have to do, maybe not necessarily something I am. And that may have allowed you, Fran, to not have as much challenge with letting them go because your parenting wasn't connected to your identity. It was connected to a role.
Could be.
Yeah. And I'm now making a distinction in my head between identity, which is connected to being, and role that's connected to doing.
Mhm.
And that's a really good, and that's why I think the one, it may be the 1, the 6, and as I'm thinking through, it may be the 1, 6, and 2 that would really have strong relationships to their identity and parenting. And I'm just thinking about that right now. Definitely the 2 and the 1, right? Because they're archetypical parent.
I would say from my perspective, and who knows whether I'm indicative of anyone else, it really, I needed to take on the identity of mother in order to be a good mother. Like that was, I had to make that leap of, I mean, not that I don't think I was a terrible mother, but like I had to own that. And now it's a very deep, important part of my identity to be a mother. But it was a big shift for me, but it was about who am I? How do I identify myself?
Yeah. Did you ever have the thought, I'm a mother, but I'm going to mother in my own way? I'm going to be a very,
every day of my life.
I'm not going to mother like all the other mothers. I'm a unique mother.
I wouldn't even buy a regular diaper bag. I had to have a diaper bag that I picked out.
Oh, I love that.
Carry a regular diaper bag.
That would be too passe. I'm not getting all that. Oh, that's so funny.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's great. What other thoughts or comments from those of you that are on Zoom? Give us a chance. We got 5 more minutes. You want to check out with anything? Judy or Suzanne, any thoughts there?
I was just having the thought about identity and parenthood. And for a 9, when I had my first daughter in my 30s, and my ex-husband, who was my husband then, didn't want to have children. When we had already decided that any of us would have a veto, like if one of us didn't want to have children, we wouldn't have children. And as a 9, I usually give up my needs, and just would stay with that. But at that point in my life, I really wanted to have children, and I really was able to say that. Maybe I connected with my 3 at that point, but I said, and so we did, and I'm glad that that was not typical of a 9 to be able to say, this is what I need.
That's beautiful, Judy. And now you have a beautiful life. You have a new life. You have is it a daughter or son?
I have 2 daughters now.
2 daughters. Yeah. So good for you. Step in 9s, you guys, step in and claim those.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you did step in with that voice. Yeah.
I'm very glad too. And my
son,
who was the 8, he accessed his 9 or something, but he did agree to do that.
Yeah. Well, I also think that's a good example. I mean, again, 8s want, if other people will step into that energy, they respect that. And they respect a really good argument around something. If you can stand your ground and make your case, then they're kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah. But they, at first they want to get at it because that's where they,
he loved
it.
Right. I hated arguing, but he loved it.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you guys at least had that argument and that you won. Yeah. There is a question from Susan on explanation of social capital. Yeah, thanks, Suzanne Smith. Social capital is some of the ways we talk about that is what's your love language. There's a book that's out on love language. I think that's a really important question with our children is how do you feel that I love you? It's a great question between couples because a lot of times we miss each other on our love language. I think they say there's 4 love languages. There's gifts, There's 5 love languages, Fran. Yeah.
Gifts, touch, acts of service, quality time,
Words of affirmation is the other one.
and words of affirmation.
Bam. Look at the wisdom of the Enneagram here on the call. So, right. And I would associate those with some forms of what I would call social capital. And so you can also see in your head, heart, gut triad, what may be my social capital is like, if we can have a great intellectual stimulating conversation, that is love. Or if we can have a great experience. I spend a ton of money on having experiences with people, but like if your love language is gifts, I don't like gifts. I don't give gifts. I don't want anybody to give me something. So like if your love language is gift receiving and mine is having great experiences, then we're going to have to learn to love each other. Or if emotional connection is really important to you, that we feel emotionally bonded, and I'm an intellectual and I want to have a really stimulating thought conversation, we may miss each other. And so I think that's why having the conversation, what's your social capital or what's your love language, is really important. And to have that with our kids too. We've had 2 of our kids were very touch oriented and like we were a very huggy family. But one of my kids was just like all the other ones, even now, like my 22-year-old boy, I mean, he will literally sit in my lap and want me to rub his back. Or he'll put his feet up in my lap, and he'll want me to rub his feet. 22-year-old boy doing. But my 21-year-old boy, I can rub his back for like 2 seconds, and he gets all squirmy. Like he just doesn't. He'll hug, but I don't. So yeah, how do we know the social capital of the love language of our children? So I hope that helps, Suzanne. All right, we're out of time. Anything, Suzanne, did you have a checkout? No, you're okay. All right, good. Well, again, I just want to say thanks, Enneagram community. This is a really great conversations. I think next week we're going to look at Enneagram and spirituality. I've done one on that before, but I think we may come back to that. Or I may look at a certain author who takes some real, like there's a lot of Enneagram work out there, and there's some different authors. I may take a book and just look at the Enneagram from their perspective, especially if it may be a little bit esoteric or nuanced. So I'm not quite sure what's going to be up for next week, but come back and we'll just have more great conversation. Thank you all so much. Appreciate. Again, Interfaith Paths to Peace is a nonprofit. Would love any donations that you want to give. We're doing an online $18 a month donation called Keep IPP Alive. If you're interested in that, you can go to our website and click on the link and do the PayPal. Thank you all that joined us on Facebook as well. We've had a great crowd on Facebook and Zoom, and you all have a blessed week. May you be better parents, and may we all be 9 grandparents, if that's where we are. So, thanks, Suzanne.
God. Have a good week.
Thank you. You too. Peace.